Oh, good day, beautiful people. Good day, beautiful folks. We are here with another Love God, Love Me, Love You episode. And today we're going to talk a lot about communication. And I believe if you will watch this entire video one, and if you will attempt to put the things that we share in this video into your life, that you're going to see better communication with those that you connect with, whether it is in a romantic relationship, maybe husband, wife, or significant other, or whether it is a parental, child, parental, or even in your business or in your um, in your work life. Okay, whatever relationships are dear to you, I believe that if it is a good flowing relationship, at the core, at the center, is phenomenal communication. And I believe that if there's a breakdown in that relationship, at the core of it is a lack of communication. So we're going to have that conversation here today. Be mindful that here at Love God, Love Me, Love You, all of our conversations really are aimed at doing one of three things. Either one, increasing our capacity to love our Creator, whether you call our creator God or source or love or whatever you, however you connect with the divine. Okay. Number two, increasing our capacity to love ourselves. And then number three, increasing our capacity to love our neighbors like we love ourselves. And I believe if we uh, really um, look to follow that commandment. Jesus, Yeshua called it the greatest command, called it the most important commandment. Someone said, what's the most important commandment? Jesus said, love God with all your heart. Then he said, the second is likened to the first, love your neighbor as yourself. So I take it as love my creator, increase my capacity to love God more and more and more with all of my heart, love me with all of my heart, love my neighbor with all of my heart. Okay, so I want to talk about communication. Let me take you back, and it's probably, as I'm doing this particular edition, it's probably been 2 years, maybe even 3 years ago. I was in a personal transformation workshop. By the way, this workshop was sponsored by Landmark Worldwide, phenomenal organization. Um, powerful workshops, and I would recommend it to anyone. Okay. So I'm in this workshop, and in this particular workshop, the focus of this workshop was on communication. And more specifically, the focus was on active listening. What I found out is I had spent most of my life not actively listening. In other words, if I was in a communicating with someone, let's say I was in a conversation, I wasn't really in that conversation with that person. I was really just trying to see when can I interject and make my point, as opposed to really hearing and listening to what they were saying. Okay, so here was the what we did. We had we broke off into groups. We were doing a Zoom, and we broke off into groups. And I think my group was maybe four people. I was one of the four. It could have been five or six, but again, this has been 2 or 3 years ago. I'm thinking it was four. Okay, and what the exercise was here we have a group of four. All right, and then within that group of four, we would pair up. All right. So let's say that you were my partner. All right. And what would happen is there would be one person, let's say that's me right now, that I would make a statement. So this wasn't an elongated statement. This wasn't an elongated conversation, but I would make a statement. So I'm going to make a statement. All right. And let's simulate being in that workshop. So I'm going to make a statement. Okay. And then what was to happen was my partner was to repeat my statement verbatim, not adding to, not taking away from, not adding additional words, not subtracting any words that they heard me share. All right. So let's do this for just a moment. Okay. Um, I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. So, what would have happened if you were in this workshop with me, and let's say we were partnered? Then you would have repeated what I just said, not adding anything to it, not taking anything away. I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. Okay, you got it? You understand what we were doing? Okay. So when my role was to be the listener, I would listen to you. Let's say that you said these words. Let's say you said these words right here. I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. Okay. I would then come back and I would repeat those words verbatim. All right. I would not say, my plan is I really want to walk in unconditional love. No, because that's not what you said. All right. What you said in my example was I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. All right. So we got that. Okay. So there's a young lady. Oh, let me share with you the other part. The other part. Okay. So the first part of the exercise was to repeat verbatim what our partner said. All right. There was a group of four, I believe it was four. And then we would take turns. All right. Let's say if John was there. I'm Tracy Lamont Silver Sr., by the way. I don't think I said that. Okay. All right. So if John was there, I'm listening to John. All right. And so John and I would do that exercise. And then let's say that Mary's over here. Mary and I would then do that exercise. I would make a statement. She would then repeat the statement. She would make us a different statement. I would repeat the statement. Okay. All right. Now, the second part of the exercise was the person repeating back would not only say what was had been said verbatim, but they would repeat it back with the same energy and even gestures. So, for instance, I talk a lot with my hands. Okay. All right. So, let's say again, here we are. I'm saying, I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. You would then say something like, I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. Now, notice the energy that I had. I had a little hand movement. I would like to think that my tone was fairly calm. Okay, all right. I did use some voice inflection. That's how I talk. All right. So you would repeat basically not only what I said, but how I said what I said. All right. Now, if I had said this, I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached, then you would have come back and you would have said something like, I endeavor, you hear much higher energy. I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. Okay. All right. So you get what the objective was. It was twofold. It was to repeat back exactly what the other person said, one. Two, it was to repeat back what they said, how they said it. Okay. All right. Now, understand that everyone that was in this workshop, we're all hearing the same things from our instructor. All right. What our instructor, the moderator of the workshop, was giving us as instructions. All right. So now I'm in my group of four, and we go around and let's say Mary. All right, it's Mary. Now I do not remember her name, unfortunately, so I'm going to say Mary for the purposes of this conversation. So Mary, uh, young lady, I'm 55 as I'm doing this. I might have been 52, maybe 53 at the time. Mary was young enough to be my daughter. I would have put Mary somewhere between her mid 20s to maybe, I say somewhere between 25 and 28 is what I would have guesstimated her age to have been. Okay. So now Mary and I, we now partner. All right. I say my statement, she repeats it. I say my statement, she repeats not only what I said, but how I said it. Cool. Now Mary has her statement. Mary has her statement. So let's say that Mary said, I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. Now, obviously, that wasn't her statement. Okay. But what I would have done and what I did is I repeated her statement verbatim in the same energy, replicating the same even movements. Okay. So I'm saying back to Mary, I endeavor to walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. And then what happened over the next few moments was not only shocking, but it was such a huge lesson for me. I repeated back to Mary what she said, how she said it. And then Mary broke down. She began to weep. And I'm looking, we're on Zoom, so we're all on camera. And I'm not sure what's going on here. And, I don't want to make her feel bad. With everybody, I think it was again four of us, or the three others, all right, or the two others and myself, we gave Mary space because obviously something was going on with Mary. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know what it was. Took a couple minutes for her to compose herself. And then she said this. She says, I don't ever remember anyone ever getting me. You got me. Let that sink in. Now, here was an exercise where everyone that was paying attention, and we paid to be as a part of this workshop, paid good money, as a matter of fact. Okay. So everybody knows what the exercise is. Everybody knows what the instructions are. And yet, when I followed instructions, and I don't believe it was because of me, I believe it could have been either one of the other folks. But when I followed the instruction and I repeated back to Mary what Mary said, the way Mary said it, it engendered this overwhelming emotional response. Because here's what happened. Mary felt heard. She felt seen. She felt validated. She felt valued. And she felt gotten. I want you to just reminisce real quickly over your life, those relationships or those conversations where you didn't feel like you were seen. You didn't feel like you were heard. You didn't feel like you were validated. You didn't feel like you were valued, or you didn't feel like you were gotten. How good were those relationships? Conversely, I want you to think about when you were in conversation with someone, when you had an interaction with someone, and you felt seen, heard, valued, validated, gotten, even if the person you were conversing with, maybe it was a deep conversation, maybe it was a heavy conversation, and maybe you didn't even agree, but you felt like they heard you. You felt like they got your point. How different would our relationships be if we brought that to the table? So here is what I endeavor to do. Yes, walk in unconditional love with no strings attached. Further, I want when I interact with others, whether that's through a conversation, whether that's through text messaging or something on social media, whether that is person to person, I want that person to walk away from that exchange experiencing being seen, experiencing being heard, experiencing being validated, that their thought process or that their opinion or that their whatever is valid. I'm validating that. It doesn't mean I necessarily agree. And I've got to be me. So I'm not going to be fake. I'm going to be authentic. But even if we don't see eye to eye, I want that person to say, he validated how I felt. Because here's the thing, I don't get to dictate how you feel. I believe we're all created in the image and the likeness of the Most High God to be like God. No, I'm not suggesting I'm the big God. No, I am suggesting that I am part of God, that you're part of God, and we all have godness in us. So I want those that I interact with to experience being seen, heard, validated, their feelings validated, their emotions validated, their opinions validated. When I say validated, I validate that that's your opinion and you have the right to that, even if your opinion is in direct opposition. Let me not use that word. Words are powerful. Are are totally opposite or different. All right. I won't say opposition, but they're just opposite. We might have a political belief that's opposite. That's okay. I want you to feel that I validated, that I respected, I honored your right to have your opinion, even if I don't share that opinion. Seen, heard, validated, valued, and gotten. I was married for 28 years. As a matter of fact, as I'm doing this particular episode, it would have been my 33rd wedding anniversary just a few days ago. That amazing woman, I believe she's up in the heavens now, um, just commemorated her fifth heavenly birthday. So on October 18th, 2020, it was our 28th wedding anniversary. She had been ill for several years. And then I heard her last words on October 18th, 2020. October 20th, 2020, um, she shed these physical clothes, and I believe she returned back to unconditional love with no strings attached eternally. All right. So now, one thing I can tell you is that for the better part of my marriage, she was a fantastic listener. I mean, I could tell the same story 100 times, and she would have heard me 100 times, and she would have validated what I said 100 times. I always felt seen, heard, validated, valued, and gotten. However, I was a kid when we got married. I didn't have a whole bunch. I was 22. Didn't date a whole lot. Okay, didn't have a whole lot of relationship experience, so I didn't know how good I had it, and so I didn't appreciate all of that until she got sick, and then I still didn't appreciate it fully until after she passed away. One, and then I ultimately was in a relationship after she passed away. And in that relationship, what I experienced was not being seen, not being heard, not being validated. And as a result, I didn't feel valued, I didn't feel gotten, and I didn't feel loved. Now, I don't doubt that the person I'm talking about loved me. I do believe they loved me, but I wasn't loved in a way that felt like love to me because I did not experience, or so many times I experienced not being seen, not being heard, my voice, my opinion, my thoughts not being validated, not feeling valued, not feeling gotten. And as a result, I didn't feel the love. I'm not saying they didn't love me. I think they did. I think they loved me to the capacity that they could. Now, I'm not in that relationship. I am in a very loving relationship now. And guess what? I am seen in this relationship and I feel heard. As a matter of fact, a lot of times I like to call her Dr. Baby. Okay. She recently got her doctorate within the past year. I'm so proud of her. When we're talking on the phone, a lot of times I have to say, Babe, you still there? Did you fall asleep? And she'll say, No, I'm just listening. And so I'm grateful that I had that relationship after my wife passed away. And then I had that relationship where I didn't oftentimes feel or experience being seen or heard. I'm grateful for that because I needed that contrast. I needed that contrast so that when I met Dr. Baby, I could appreciate being seen and heard and validated and valued and gotten. So the reason I wanted to do this particular edition is I wanted to, well, this is more for me than it is for anyone. And if you find value and me talking about, my journey uh, things that I'm working on, and even things where I trip and stumble, because I'll let you know that too. If that provides value to you, fantastic. Okay. But this is what I'm working, that in my interactions with people, in my conversations with people, I want them to walk away saying, man, or woman, that dude got me. Oftentimes, with Dr. Baby and I, especially if there's a conversation where maybe we don't quite see eye to eye. Oftentimes, I'll say, do you feel heard? Do you feel like I got you? What if we brought that type of attitude to our conversations, that type of attitude to our relationships? How much better might those relationships be? And understand um, that none of us get to dictate what anyone else does, says, how they respond, or what have you. Okay. I could bring that level of wanting to listen and hear to someone, and they may not be as responsive. That's okay. They get to they have their own path. I believe we're all spirit beings created in the image of God, having human experiences, but all of our human experiences are uniquely ours. I believe that we're all individual expressions of God, and we're all unique, individualized expressions of God. I don't get to dictate your human experience. I don't get to dictate whether you respond favorably to me or not. What I do get to dictate is how I choose to move. And I choose, my endeavor is to love unconditionally, unconditional love with no strings attached. My endeavor is that those that I interact with, that they walk away feeling seen, heard, validated, valued, and gotten. If you have um, received any value, I don't know why my hand went up. I'm using Zoom to do this. Okay. If you've gotten any value out of this episode, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Like this video, leave some engaging comments. I would love to engage with you in the comments, and even consider, sharing this with others. We want to build a love community, a love-based community where we're all on our path to increase our capacity to love God with all of our heart, love ourselves with all of our heart, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. Until our next episode, we love each and every one of you. Let's transform this world together, starting with yours.